Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. So I would like to do another flip through and review of a much beloved deck, a deck that I have been playing with for close to 4, maybe even 5 years. I'm actually not quite sure. I like to take my time when reviewing decks, and for me to do that, I actually need to spend a good deal of time with the deck that I'm about to review and have all the yummy experiences with that particular deck. I'm sure you understand what I mean. It's really hard to just get given a deck, then use it a couple of times and then decide that to do a review. And that's a much more clinical approach to a review, whereas I prefer a much more meaningful, intuitive and relationship oriented review, because that is exactly what happens when you spend a good deal of time with a deck, is that you get to build up a relationship or a rapport with that deck, and that in turn builds up all of these experiences and memories, and those experiences and memories are so worthy of mentioning when we're doing these types of reviews, because it shows the other side of the tarot reader's relationship with their tools. So that's why I don't do all that many reviews, but I do heaps of flip throughs because they are so much easier than, you know, putting in the effort to get to know. I have relationships with these decks. They were not easy to cultivate. So these are the ones that I'm going to be reviewing. And I have decided also that since I moved and I culled a heap of decks, the ones that I have left over are the ones that I do have experience with, so I would like to do more reviews. So I'm going to start by doing this one right here, and this is the Gaia Oracle. And the Gaia Oracle is by Tony Carmine Salerno. It is a Blue Angel deck. This is the front of the box. This is the side of the box. It is slightly sun bleached from when I lived up north. That's what it actually should look like. The top of it's like a light green. And this is the back of the box itself. As you can see, it's beautiful artwork. You've got the little blue angel there. It says 45 card set featuring guidebook and cards. 45 Gaia inspired images designed to bring peace and healing, 45 power heartfelt messages that offer guidance and clarity, and 45 self-empowering affirmations to help you fulfill your dreams. And so that is what it looks like there. And again, that's the front. So let's place this off to the side. This deck does come with a guidebook, and this is what the guidebook looks like, and it is quite slender. It's not the thickest of guidebooks, but it is still very good. It is 87 pages, not including the back page, which is more of a thank you than anything, making it 88. And so you open up, and what you get is your dedication, and the dedication is lovely. It is to Gaia, goddess of earth, my muse and inspiration. It is through her love, grace, and wisdom that my work comes into existence. And I thought that that was really beautiful. So you have your table of contents. You have the about section of the Gaia Oracle. I think, yeah, which is there. You have how to use the cards, your question, the future, one card reading. You have some spreads here, which is always nice. I like a nice little selection of spreads, despite the fact that I don't really adore using spreads all that much. I think that they're very helpful. And then you have the card interpretations here, and they are laid out in this particular manner, where you have a small black and white representation of the card itself, the number, the name, the keywords, and then a description here, followed by the affirmation. Take, for instance, tree of life, fertility, creativity, destiny, magical blessing. And the affirmation is, I am the master of my own destiny, and I truly desire, all I truly desire, I create. All I create through love. All I create is for the higher good of all. I am truly blessed and grateful for all the abundance in my life. And I think that they're really beautiful, positive types of affirmations, and perfect for saying, for instance, on a new moon ritual, or through a new moon ritual, where you can pull this card and really focus on it. You can select it, or you can draw it naturally, and you can utilize it in your spiritual practice to, you know, to help to bring that intention into existence. So it's a beautiful little guidebook. It's pretty simple. One thing that I do love about a guidebook from time to time, especially an Oracle guidebook, is that their meanings, their messages, they're not too long. They don't take too much time. I don't have a great deal of time to pour through very long descriptions of you know, of cards and their meanings and things like that. So I do prefer a much more succinct guidebook. So that's the little guidebook there. And this is the deck itself. So we have the deck, sides of the deck there, they're uncolored. They are a standard Blue Angel size. They have the burning heart on the background. And let's have a bit of a look through it. So I want to be able to, they're not in order for starters. I want to be able to talk a little bit about each of the cards. And some of the cards, like this one here, for example, Peace, are non-pictorial, which I quite enjoyed simply because when I think of peace, it's more of a state of being, it's a state of mind, and it has no particular symbolism for me. I know that some people like to work with the concept of the dove for peace or the color white, and there are some more typical collective symbolism for peace, but I preferred this, like just a kind of reminds me of a sunset, and that's a nice little image. Let me put this off to the side here. And then we have achievement, and achievement, keep focused on your dreams, and this is for achievement. I must confess, while this is a beautiful card and a beautiful illustration, I don't love this particular image for achievement. When I think of achievement, this is not the image that would naturally come to mind. And so it's a very soft deck. Already off the back, we know that this is going to be a very soft deck. Blue Angel is not known for its hard-hitting images, but this does have a certain amount of balance to it, which I really like. Here we have attachment, letting go, restrictions, and fear. And I think that this is probably one of the more shadow cards in the deck. There are a couple of others, which we will get to eventually. But I do love this particular entanglement. I do love the naturist aspect of it. I love that feminine, the sacred feminine feel, which of course is going to be woven through this deck because it is the Gaia Oracle. Here we have amethyst, transformation, certainty, and confidence. And here we have some esoteric symbolism, as you can see here with the stars of David. We have somewhat of a reptilian. I almost feel that this is sort of dragon energy, but it's actually not the dragon. We have a solar focus there and a smaller solar focus down here. And there is this really interesting mix of symbolism, and the artwork doesn't exactly lend too much into understanding what that symbolism is, but the word amethyst immediately brings things into mind. So this is the Sacred Heart, which is the backing of the card itself. So this is Sacred Heart, and Sacred Heart is for passion, love, spiritual communion. And I think that this is an absolutely beautiful image. It's very soft, it's very gentle. I love the concept of the Sacred Heart. I love the concept of the tree-like root system and the flame. And it's very passive, but at the same time, it's very colorful and it's very igniting. And I feel that when you draw a card like this, it does remind you to set your heart on fire with something that is considered to be a passion project, something that you can really, really burn for, you know, and, you know, illuminate the midnight hours with this desire to create. I think it's beautiful, and since I'm a creative individual, I resonate with that, and I'm sure that every creative individual would resonate with the concept of it. Maybe not necessarily the artwork, but definitely the concept. Here we have Hidden Path, another example of occult symbolism or esoteric symbolism here. We have Egyptian symbolism, Eye of Horus there, and we have the Ankh, the marriage of the spirit and matter. So we have that beautiful tree-like presence. We have the wood. We have the hearts underneath showing the love of the earth. We have a solar aspect off to the side here. Trees are in full bloom, and then you have this, you know, esoteric symbolism there hanging out in the background, reminding you of that occult path, that call to the mystic. And this is one of my favorite cards, I must admit. Then we have Remembrance, and this is resurfacing. of past feelings and emotions. And this is a beautiful, beautiful card. Another one of the more shadow aspects, one of the more shadow cards. And I do love this because I'm a person that has a tendency of looking at things from a retrospective position, or I find myself getting called to the past quite often. And this is a habit that I have slowly been able to break myself of. And if only I could break myself of my current nail biting habit, but that's for another time. But this one here really talks about, you know, being stuck at times, and it can sometimes throw into sharp relief this necessity to do a full-on cleanse, like to disconnect energetic cords, chakra hooks, things of that nature, where we feel like we are energetically tethered to another or a memory of another through an experience that might not necessarily have been so fantastic. So this is a particular kind of call to action card, I find, that can help us to address this particular state of attachment and get us working from a more metaphysical perspective on releasing that attachment and moving on, or healing that attachment and moving on. So it's a beautiful card and it serves a wonderful purpose. Then we have here Gaia, and this one here is for Gaia, the archetypal energy, wisdom, knowledge, spiritual understanding. And I think that they could have done better with an image of Gaia, if I'm being entirely truthful. I happen to adore the archetypal energy of Gaia. I happen to adore her mythology, her narrative. I enjoy her statuary. Right at this moment in time, on my table, I have the bronze Gaia statue. So I also have the colored world statue of Gaia. And I love the concepts of the sacred feminine depicted through Gaia. So when I saw this one, I must admit that I found it a little bit lackluster for me, and I could have seen more. A Gaia card should have had more for me. But that's just my own personal perspectives, of course. And then we have here the Temptress, which I think is beautiful. Seduction, deceit, a broken promise, and another one of the shadow cards, and also a play on the scarlet aspect of the sacred feminine. You know, we have the Madonna, we have the whore, we have many archetypes within the sacred feminine, and I find that this is that particular sensual, you know, sacred whore, if I'm being entirely honest with my language here. And she plays such a pivotal role in the story of the sacred feminine, in our own personal stories as well. I know during my 20s, I played the part of the whore quite nicely. And when I say whore, I'm talking lovingly about my more openly expressive sexual time, my promiscuity, which I wouldn't necessarily have said was a very negative thing. I was very open with my sensuality. I was very open with my sexuality. I still drew the line. I still had mad respect for my body. I still had mad respect for my reputation. But I wasn't shy about the fact that I was, you know, divinely female, and I knew how I felt in my body, and I knew that at that time my body was a direct representation of how I felt within me. And it was a delicious time. It was a very ripe time, and I associate that time very much with that sacred whore. And so the Temptress to me just reminds me of that particular interplay. So we have here the hidden gift, and this is the first masculine aspect, clearly masculinely depicted, of course. It's the hidden gift, sadness, an ending, and a new beginning. Now, I didn't quite understand this card and why they particularly chose to add a masculine representation into it. I didn't necessarily think that the masculine representation gelled well with the keyword or even the hidden gift, although it very much may, if I'm being entirely like philosophical about it. But I'm not trying to be entirely philosophical. So we have the hidden gifts here, and that's the first masculine depiction. Then we have healing, and I found this to be a very beautiful healing card. Like I said, they're very soft with their depictions. So healing, reconnecting with your true nature, which I think is a beautiful concept. And I happen to think that the nature itself can be very healing. My husband and I were just talking about this the other day, that there are times where you need to go to temple space. You feel like you do. And what he and I both like to do from very very different perspectives using very different ideologies and frameworks. I go to nature, he goes to nature, but we go to nature for very different things, yet we receive the very same when we look at it. And it's always because we want to heal a facet of ourselves. But I find that nature does one specific thing. He finds that nature does another specific thing. I'm passive nature, he's aggressive nature, or active nature. Aggressive is not the right word. But he has to go out in nature and work and toil and do the things, where I have to go out in nature and forage and photograph and muse and notice and paint and draw. So it's a very different approach to nature for a very similar outcome, if that makes sense. So I find that nature can be very healing. I love the gentle depiction of that. Then we have the Tree of Life, which was the first card. Again, esoteric symbolisms here. I'll bring this nice and close. So you can see here the heart, you can see an ankh-like symbol, you can see the infinity, the star, the yin and the yang, you can see an apple. It's all very much there, and it throws into sharp relief that concept of the world tree and the great tree of life. And I think it's beautiful. It's one of my favorite cards. I dig me a great representation of the Tree of Life. I really do. Of the world tree, of the wisdom tree, of the shamanic tree, of the years that I healed. You know, just give me a tree representation and I'm super happy. And then we have here another shadow card, and this is loss, grief, sadness, and resurrection. And it kind of has that tie to the death card, because we're talking about grief, we're talking about sadness. So these are things ending, so it's that death aspect. And then we have the resurrection, which is that new beginning, which is that transformative quality to it. And all the colors are subdued, and there's just that something extra. There's a lot of red in here, which I found to be particularly alluring, and I thought that this was a beautiful card. And then we have the Flame Tree, and this is the start of something new. It's a beautiful symbolism. I don't have too much to say about it. I know I like it. I would have depicted it differently if that were me and I was in control of this card. I would have put something much more desert-esque in the background, something really with that twilight blue sky and, you know, and a really gnarled tree reaching out into the starscape and just fire, and I would have put esoteric symbolisms in that for sure. That's just my way. So then we have a much more, you know, passive angelic depiction here of the moonlight goddess, repressed emotions, healing, reflection. And what we have here is this this sensuality that is, it's beautiful to see, because you don't see a lot of nudity, and the female form is here, but it's done so in such a manner. Here we have the female form expressed. We have the breasts that are out. We have the you know, that lack of inhibition there, and then we have the wings at the same time. And that concept of repressed emotion and healing and reflection. I am confused by the image itself, the wings. I don't understand the wings in this particular scenario. That's my particular point. Moonlit goddess, when I would have thought of a moonlit goddess, she would not have had wings, and I would have depicted her very differently. But I still get what I need to out of this particular card, and I try not to let the image of the angelic wings or the bird wings even, I'm saying angelic. They don't necessarily have to be angelic. They could be birds wings, but I'm not into it. I'm not into it. Yet it's a beautiful image in its own right. Like, look at that. It's beautiful. If I can get it straight on. So I'm not sad about the image. I just, sometimes, you know, you have to think of if you would do it. We have yin and yang here, creating harmony through balance. So we have an Eastern flavor through the deck itself. Again, that sort of more esoteric spiritualist symbolism here, creating harmony through balance, which I totally dig. I've got not too much to say about this particular card. I would have liked darker hair. I don't know why. I would have liked darker hair. And then we have evolution, earth changes, climate change, transformation. I absolutely adore this card for that concept of earth changes and climate change and transformation. I think a Gaia Oracle should have some ecological consciousness triggers built in there for, you know, various reasons. But I'm a person that likes to approach my day-to-day existence in a very eco-friendly manner. And so I appreciate this being here. And I don't know, honestly, I'm happy with this image because I don't don't know how I would potentially depict this particular string of keywords, but I happen to like that. That's not too much of a problem for me. And then we have here, we have Jewel Within a Teardrop, appreciation, spiritual and emotional reconnection. And it's a beautiful card. And it's got a youth to it, a youth, oh, what's the word? A youth, I can't say it. It's got a young feel. Youthfulness, that's what I was trying to say. God, could I? It's got a youthfulness to the card itself, and Jewel Within a Teardrop, appreciation, spiritual and emotional reconnection. I think it's quite lovely in that way. So then we have here Lost Love, surrender, healing and release. It's another shadow card, sort of, but it has a lovely balance to it. The colors do not speak to the actual context of the title and of the key phrase, not in my opinion at least, although there is this surrender, healing and release. So we have lots of blue and lots of green for healing as well, but when I think of release, I actually think of things in a very different color palette, I must confess. And so yeah, I would have liked to have seen something a little different. Then we have here Winter's End, regeneration, rebirth, and positive outcome. I do think of this as a bit of a shadow card, but a very positive shadow card, if that makes sense. And it's about coming to life. And I love the color palette used in this particular image. I think these earthy tones and this woman edging out of this gorgeous tree trunk. And oh, I love the browns, I love the oranges, I love all the warmth that is in here. And then that subtle blossoming. I think it's absolutely beautiful. We have harmony. I might speed this up a little bit because I don't need to talk about every single card. We have harmony and self-confidence, productivity. We have the search, feeling lost, confused, lonely. Again, one of those shadow cards. And I happen to love this card because sometimes I get writer's block and I get creatively blocked quite a bit. And this card pops up for me and I can meditate on it and it's good. Ganesh, clearing away obstacles, protection, guidance. This is a fantastic card to actually place as an altar, decoration or an affirmation or a representation of a deity, particularly when you're trying to burst through those obstacles. It puts that image there. It puts that image, firmly in your mind when you stare at it, when you're doing your meditations, you can gaze at it. It's a very beautiful, soft image. I love it, and I have used it that way many times. We have Enchanted Forests. This is mystery, magic, and excitement, which is beautiful. Again, I would have put some extra things there. It's not that I'm 100% dissatisfied with the image, but I would have, when I think excitement, I would have added maybe some fairy depiction there, or maybe like something shadowed and animals, or something. We have Ocean of Eternal Love, healing, creativity and fertility, which is beautiful. Love the colors, very lunar to me. Then we have Thinking of You, a loving thought, serendipity. Don't like this one. It's too much like that first card that we spoke of. What is it? Where are you? There. It's like almost exactly the same. Peace and Thinking of You. Loving thought and serendipity. Don't like it. I don't like that they did that. That genuinely annoys me, actually. So we have Purification, Fire, Bare Essentials, The Naked Truth, and Wholeness. I love this. I think it's beautiful. Would have liked to have seen more fire and some esoteric symbolism. Then we have Goddess of Creation, Transformation, Creativity, and Wholeness. And I think this is beautiful. But again, these depictions, as beautiful as they are not what I myself would have used to depict these particular types of titles and keywords. I wanted to see voluptuousness and much more color. Much more of a cornucopia of the natural world, wild and blossom. Ooh, yes. Intuitive communication, silent whispers of the heart. I think this is beautiful and a fantastic reminder to tap into the inner guide, to listen, to work on your intuitive faculties, to connect with your intuitive faculties. We have reflection, illusion, self-examination, and distortion, which is interesting, and I think this is a fine depiction. And here we have Rising Above, Charity, Freedom, and Solution. Interesting depiction. And again, we have a peaceful bird for that. So it's implying something. Then we have the Zen Garden, Inner Sanctuary. This is beautiful. This is an action. Oh, God, I get all tongue-tied. It's a beautiful card. A genuinely beautiful depiction. Then we have Perception Beyond the Veil of Illusion. This is has an inner strength and a warmth to the card itself that I really enjoy. Then we have Liberation, another bird. See, there's a repetition of cards here that I'm not really interested in. I'm not into. Breaking free from the negative attachment, from a negative attachment, I should say. And then we have Apprehension, which I think is a great card to have because many of us can feel that feeling of apprehension. I know that I do. So moving out into the world of doubt and fear, and it's totally normal to experience this, and it's nice for it to be depicted in a card. It's not too aggressive, it's not too confronting. We have Night Wind, we have Facing Fear, Subconscious Release and Healing, and I feel like we've got an overlap of particular keywords here. Facing Fear, Subconscious Release and Healing, and here we have Breaking Free from Negative Attachments, and that's a bit of subconscious release, and that's also, you know, there's a few things here that feel like they're repeated, not exactly the same, but a little bit repeated. Then we have Moonlight, Travel, Romance and Potential, which I think is beautiful. And Sacred Earth Mother, A Message of Love, which is gorgeous. Oh, this is one of my favorite cards. Nine of Hearts, Fulfillment, Harmony and Protection. We have esoteric symbolism here. We have a lot of movement, a lot of color, a lot of potential within the card itself. And I think this is a really, really beautiful card, and I like to meditate on it. It makes me feel very happy. Purification of Water, Emotional Cleansing and Rejuvenation. She looks very sad. I don't know that I would have used her. And then we have the Dream, Something is Revealed, Insight and Breakthrough. There we go. And that to me just doesn't say a revelation. Mind you, if anyone's actually ever slept underneath the moonlight, you will know that sometimes your dreamscapes can be the revelation. So perhaps they're talking about a much more astral thing or a lucid dreaming thing. Who knows, but you know. Then we have Eternal Dance. This is a beautiful card. Movement, Wheel of Life, Path of Least Resistance. There we go. And do you see what I mean? I feel like some of these key phrases, keywords, they bleed into each other. And while it's important for a deck to have that continuity of theme, it's also important for a deck to really have defined features. And I like the cards to be defined features. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a very well balanced deck. It does have a good element of balance, but I would prefer the Oracle of Echoes for having very clear keywords or titles, very descriptive, very clear keywords. There's no mixing and mingling of that energy. It is one's for this, one's for that, one's for this, one's for that, one's for this, one for that, and that works for me personally. When they're too similar, it's like, oh, they were just reaching in a very small pool of consciousness for these titles and for these keywords, and I found like they should have expanded that pool just a little bit more. Perhaps a further meditation on Gaia and all of her majesty would have gotten them there. Here we have another dove. The message, positive news, positive outcome. Again, I don't understand why they've used very similar symbolism. Then we have eternal love, happiness, harmony and fulfillment. Again, we're edging close to some of the other cards that we've seen here. And then we have the Sacred Journey, Life Cycles, Family and Transformation, which I think is a beautiful card. It's a really, really beautiful card. Talks about elevation and interconnectedness. And so this has been my flip through and comprehensive narrating of the Gaia Oracle. And I would like to say that at one point in my tarot reading career, I would have thought that the Gaia Oracle was my absolute favorite Oracle deck. And this is probably when I still only had one baby in my life. So a long time ago. Now, it's not that I dislike this Oracle deck now, it's that I have grown to understand Gaia more, and I understand that, you know, this is not how I would have depicted a Gaia Oracle, if that makes sense. If I were to do a Gaia Oracle, and I hope to one day do so, I would have done it very differently. I'm so sorry, I didn't even realize my phone was on loud then. That's weird. It's never on loud. But all in all, I think this is a very beautiful deck. I use this deck. I still do use this deck, and I use it as a finisher. I use it as a meditation deck, and I think that it has a soft, sweet, element to it, and it does hold the Gaia energy. I'm not saying that it doesn't. It does hold the Gaia energy, but from a very placid and passive angle, and I'm interested in the whole picture when I think of Gaia. I'm interested in her smile and in her tears, in her laughter and in her teeth. You know, I'm really interested in the whole archetypal experience and the whole depiction of who Gaia is from a creative and a destructive perspective. So as much as I absolutely adore this deck, it is no longer my absolute favorite Oracle deck ever, like I once thought. It was right up there. But it still is a deck that is very near and dear to my heart. And it is a deck that I continually reach for. It is a deck that I can't see myself ever getting rid of. And it's a deck that feels like a warm hug, and, you know, that's good. It's good to have these warm hug decks. I think it was Kelly from The Truth and Story. She calls these softer decks hug decks. And I think that that's a particularly excellent descriptive, because this is definitely a hug deck. Does it have some hard-hitting themes in there? Yeah. And if you're the type of person that doesn't enjoy a deck that has a lot of trigger images, then this would be a very soft, very perfect deck for you. It's still a very nice healing deck. It's a very nice meditation deck. It's a great divination deck, and it's a deck that can be used for path working, and you can still do all of the things with this particular deck and yet have that beautiful healing experience with it. And so I would definitely recommend this deck for someone who has a much more gentler palette as far as or taste as far as decks go, particularly where image is concerned. And sometimes these decks, they have to exist for these people who need that kind of soft approach to healing. And for that reason alone, the Gaia Oracle is a beautiful deck. It's still in print. It's still popular. People still love it. I don't see it photographed as often anymore, so I might do some instas of it just to, you know, just to put the name out there a little bit more, just to remind people that it's still a really beautiful deck and one that's very worthy of working with. And so thanks very much for hanging out with me for this very long-winded flip through review thing. This is how I like to do my reviews, apparently, and it works for me, and we can have a conversation. Next time I'm going to have some tea right here, and we're going to drink some tea, and we're going to do this together. And you might want to have a journal present, and you might want to have that experience and write down your thoughts and your opinions. And that way you can see if this deck deserves to be on your wish list or if it's no, actually it doesn't. I've always wondered about it, but it doesn't. So there you have it, beautiful souls. Much love, many blessings. I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this one. Wishing you so much love, luck, peace, and joy. Mwah! See ya!